What's up, dudes? Welcome to my very first YouTube story. I have literally hundreds of these stories, so if you guys are into it, drop a like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Any feedback is very much appreciated, but I'm not going to ramble too much. Let's get right into this one. So this story starts out as a regular summer day. I was a fresh 18-year-old straight out of high school, full of ambition, curiosity. I woke up, got dressed, brushed my teeth, and called the boys, obviously. And most of that day was pretty normal. I had started working a job at a party rentals place, strictly to buy weed and alcohol. I had no actual goals at this point, besides going home to get high with the boys. Not my highest point, but we had some good times, and I wouldn't be telling this story otherwise, to be honest. So anyway, I go through the workday as usual, smacking stakes into the ground like I was working on the New York Central Railroad or some shit, and I go home. It's probably 6 or 7 o'clock or so at night, and the night is young. Now I should probably tell you about this friend group. You know those friends that are always just, always down to do some reckless shit? No matter what it was, you could be like, hey, you want to rob an armored bank truck? And they'd be like, as long as I could get high first, bro. Yeah, those kinds of guys, you know. So we all get together, and there was a little group of us, 4 people, and that's pretty much how I stayed for the rest of the night. But we had an issue. We needed weed. Our one friend, we'll call him Tony, he hits up the weed guy, and I remember this weed very, very well. I'll never forget it. Cherry pie. It was notoriously the frostiest, stickiest of the icky in the area. And we picked a 1/4 ounce up for the night. We didn't know what we were doing at this point, but we knew it was going to be good. It was Friday, and we had no work, and there was no school, obviously. It was summer, and it was a Friday night. And now that we solved our biggest problem, we needed something to do. So we look at our other friend, Mike. I don't think he'd mind if I use his name in the video. I'm still friends with him to this day. Great dude. But I just look up at Mike and smile like, wanna roll up? And if you smoke, you know this look very well. It's that little smirk you give your friend when it's time to go chief up somewhere. And he just doesn't catch on. So I lift the bag of weed up and I wave it a little bit. And then this guy just whips out a whole weed survival kit from his trunk. And in that pop box, there were the largest papers I have ever seen. And I mean, imagine taking 3 normal papers and sticking them together like an extendo. They were that long. And I mean, I was down, obviously, so I tell him to roll up. And once we get it rolled up and spark it, that's when the ideas start to come to us. And I remember a bunch of lame ideas being tossed around for a few minutes, and I was like, fuck it, let's go to the arcade. But don't be fooled here. My town has a dope arcade. You can bowl and play pool and ping pong and karaoke all inside a huge arcade with hundreds of games. And everyone was with it, so off to the arcade we went. But when we got to the arcade, turns out since they sold alcohol at this arcade, they were carding off Friday nights or some shit, I don't know. And my brother didn't have an ID at the time, and neither did I. My brother was the other person that was with us, by the way. So that was out of the equation after an hour brainstorming ideas. Then Tony just said it. He was like, fuck it, let's go to New York City. I can't really do a good Tony. He probably won't even like that I call him Tony in this video, but whatever. But he's like, fuck it, let's go to New York City. And that's how Tony always presented ideas. He was always he liked to persuade you. He had to convince you so we were all on board, you know? And this guy could sell a brick of ice to a fucking polar bear. And at this point, we were kind of just out of ideas and high as an astronaut's ass, and the city was only about a 3-hour drive from us, so it wasn't that bad. But Mike was like, I don't know, I don't really want to drive my car into the city that far. And I think he said his license was suspended too, which was awesome to be just finding out with a bag of weed in my pocket. And at some point, we had picked up a 12-pack too, just for the 4 of us, so the passengers of this ride could drink, because, you know, drinking and driving is bad. Don't do that. Also, huge shout out to Mike for not drinking and driving that night, because that could have went a completely opposite direction than it did. So, shout out to Mike. But anyways, Tony's like, well, I could drive your car, bro. Then it's legal. Fuck it. Let's go. Just don't be a worm. You know, he's just saying anything he can to convince Mike to go to this city, because Mike was the only one that had any kind of rebuttal against it. But Mike's still just like, nah, that's kind of a far drive. I don't really want to put the miles on my car. And those were all fair arguments. Plus, we were high. Most of us were drunk. And we had to go through mad tolls and hope we didn't get pulled over for what weed we had left in our pockets. Plus, we had the beer in the trunk. So bringing his car was out of the question. But I was determined. I wasn't giving up that easy. So I was like, bro, why don't we just take a train? We have some bread. I just got paid and the train ticket can't be that much. And those were the golden words, man. They won him over somehow. And I was like, put your seatbelts on, boys. We're going to the train station. So we head off in the direction of the train station, and not even 5 minutes down the road from the park we were just chiefing some devil's lettuce at, I'm like, wait, we need supplies for this. I've been down this road before, and we need to be prepared for this venture. So Tony hits the plug back up, and we still had about an eighth left, so I just had him double up on it and order another one. And we meet up with him at a gas station that was pretty close to his house. Everything's smooth, and he leaves. But then I see that buzzing neon Budweiser sign in the window, and I'm like, put this bitch in park. I'm going to send it inside and see if this guy will card me. But apparently Tony knew the guy behind the counter, so he was like, nah, I got this one. So he goes inside, and I'm just watching out the car window like a child waiting for him to come out. Because I didn't know if he was going to sell it to him or not. Anything could have happened. It could have been a different guy behind the counter or something. I don't know. But then he just opens the door of the gas station and walks out with the holy grail. A big fat 30-pack of ice cold bottles. And it was only for the 3 of us, and we already killed the 12-pack. So we were set. And as he's coming out, some other homies pull in, and they're like, yo, what's up? And we're like, yo, what's good? We're about to head to New York City, dude. Shit's gonna be crazy. And we just smoke and chill for a little bit, and then we say our goodbyes. And now we're on our way. Full adrenaline, heads out of the sunroof, chugging beers with Fortunate Son blasting on the radio, all the way to the train station. So we pull into the train station parking lot, and there's not a car in the parking lot. The whole fucking place is empty. So we figured there was no train coming to the station tonight, and we took advantage of the situation. While Tony's surfing Google Maps for an open train station, me and my brother are car surfing on the side of Mike's car while he's skirting around the empty parking lot at about 50 miles an hour. I mean, don't get me wrong, I know it was stupid, but it was pretty fun, and everything we do is stupid, so don't judge me. Also, don't do anything that I do in this video. Like, anything that I say, just don't repeat what we do. Just don't. So Tony finds an open train station, which was already 2 hours from the train station that we were already at, and we load up the car and we head towards it. And that trip was pretty much the same as the other trip to the train station, except we were more just smoking and chilling, thinking of things to do in the city. And when we get to the train station, we lock up the whip, we load up the beer into a book bag, and we put the weed in my pocket in case the backpack gets lost or stolen or something, just so we don't lose all of our goodies at once if it came down to it. And we didn't know this until now, but Mike was horrified to get on the train. I guess he had never been on a train before, and I didn't know that, and he didn't know what was going to happen, so for whatever reason, he was terrified. So we're standing on this platform waiting for the train for like 10-15 minutes. Mike's white in the face and he's not talking. It was the funniest shit I've ever seen, to be honest. The train pulls up, all loud and rumbling and shaking in the ground, and we push Mike on and load in. And at this point it was like 1 a.m., so the public transportation looked about as you would imagine. It was empty with a few homeless people looking for the place to sleep, and graveyard shift workers just going into work. So we're all on the train and we sit down and everything, and we get comfortable. And this is when the train ride gets interesting. I guess Tony was into like some Gucci ass, like fancy coach train or some shit. And he had to pee. And there was this guy sitting diagonally to us who just didn't speak English or something. I don't really know. Just minding his business. And Tony asked him where the bathroom is. But he didn't understand, obviously. He didn't speak English. We were fucked up pretty good at this point. And Tony starts breaking out his 7th grade level Spanish, Puedo ir al baño shit. And this guy clearly didn't understand. So Tony starts making like a little motion where he's like pissing and swinging his hips while he's repeating baño, baño, baño. And that must have gave the dude like the idea Tony was going to whip his dick out and piss all over him. So he starts freaking out and he's trying to get away from him. So Tony pretty much gives up on the bathroom idea. And this guy is looking at us like we're fucking crazy for the rest of the train ride. So the train comes to a stop, Mike runs to the door and the rest of us follow. And I have no idea where we are. I've never been to this city. And Mike and Tony have been there a couple times, I guess, so they were kind of like my tour guides for this, and I just had faith that we wouldn't get lost. So we leave the platform and start our journey into the city, and we're looking up at all the skyscrapers and the people everywhere, and I'm just kind of in awe of all of it. I've never seen anything like this at this point, and I completely understood why it's called the city that never sleeps. And we're kind of just walking around, bullshitting, and I want to smoke a blunt, goddammit. And thankfully, Mike put his weed first aid kit in my bag, so we had some blunt wraps ready to be rolled. But there was nowhere to smoke a blunt anywhere. There were so many people, we had no idea where to go. So we just keep walking around, and somehow we just stumble across Times Square, which is the most packed part of the city at this point, so far. There were models posting up for pictures, and there was cops on every corner, and there were construction workers doing work on the sewers at like 1:30 in the morning or whatever time it was. The place was literally just littered with activity. But Tony just walks up to this table that's sitting directly in the middle of Times Square, pulls up a chair, sits down, and starts to break down this blunt. And I was drunk, and I hadn't smoked in a good hour at this point. It's like 2:30 in the morning, and I'm ready to smoke. So I sit down with him, and my brother and Mike follow. I light up a cigarette and start smoking that puppy, which was a mistake. I didn't know it this time, but when you light a cigarette in this city, it's like the only light in a cave full of moths, and people come at you like cockroaches, like, hey, can I bum a cigarette off you? You got a cigarette I can get? And since I'm a nice guy, I started passing them out. I had a brand new pack, and I didn't really care. I just got paid. I'll just buy another pack. It's whatever. But then at some point, I did start to care, okay? So I just clipped it, and I put it behind my ear, hoping that nobody would ask me for any more cigarettes, and that would be the end of it. But all while these people are coming up to me like, hey, can I bum a cigarette off you, bro? It turns out this man had wandered up to us, and he was all like, he was in like torn up clothes, and he was all dirty, and he was clearly homeless. And he just put his hand out, and he kind of cupped it a little bit, and he stood there. And none of us really knew what that meant. He didn't say a word, so we all just kind of looked at each other, and then he grunts a little bit, and he mumbles something under his breath, and Tony's like, oh! And pulls out his wallet, and he gives the guy some money. I'm like, oh, okay, he's homeless, and he needs a few bucks, that makes sense. And then I thought that was the end of it. But no, then he walks right up to Mike, and he puts his hand out, and he grunts again. And the grunts, they were clearly angry grunts. He was not happy with us. He did not like the speed we were moving to give him this money. And we were having some trouble figuring him out, to be honest. So Mike gives him a few bucks, and he moves down the line. Same with my brother, and he gets to me. And I'm like, fuck, I've been giving shit out all night in this place. I'm not going to have anything left. But he clearly needed it more than I did, so I tossed him a few bucks and a nug from my bag. At least he'd be able to get high. So Tony finishes up this marvelous cannon of a blunt, and we get back to walking. And this man just sparks this shit up right in the middle of all these people in New York City. He did not give a single fuck. So we just started walking around, smoking this blunt, not even trying to hide it, and nothing but mischief on our minds, you know? So we were smoking this blunt and having a grand old time, and we were walking around, and we spotted the worst thing you could see as a stoner with his weed lit. 2 cops standing on the same sidewalk as us, which is only about 4 people wide. It wasn't very big at all. About 75 feet ahead. So I'm like, yo, slow down, what do we do? And we had a few seconds to think before we passed them, and they were minding their business, so they wouldn't really spot us from a distance. And for some reason, instead of just dropping the blunt on the sidewalk and walking past the cops with all of our beer and weed probably safe, we didn't. We just kept smoking and walking. And whose turn was it in rotation? You guessed it. So I'm like, fuck it, I'll just run if worst comes to worst, which I do not recommend doing. NYPD will catch your ass in a heartbeat, and they will beat you to a pulp. So I cup this blunt, and I walk right past the cops, and I get right behind them, and I just start puffing it. And then I get a little paranoid because I'm stoned, you know, so I take off. Yeah, not really a run. It was more like a speed walk type deal, just so I didn't get, caught if I had to, just to try to blend in with the crowd. And somehow it worked. They didn't notice or they didn't care or something, and we just walked right past them. Mission success. But we didn't get off of that sidewalk scot-free. No, of course not. We walked not even 5 minutes up that same sidewalk and ended up outside of a club where there were some guys outside bullshitting. And remember how I said New York City is kind of like the headquarters for people being like, oh, hey, can I get a cigarette, bro? Well, one of these guys stopped me and tried to bum a cigarette off of me. But I had given out like half a pack, and I wasn't about to give out any more. So I was like, sorry, bro, I don't have any on me. And he goes, oh, really? What about that one? And he points to the cigarette that I had clipped earlier, and I put right behind my ear that I completely forgot. So I'm like, oh, fuck, he caught me. What do I say? And I'm just like, yeah, it's my only one. And I speed walked to catch up with my friends who didn't even see any of it. And this guy's just talking shit behind me because he's drunk. And I'm just like, yeah, go buy a pack of cigarettes. If you have all the money to be partying in the club, you can afford a pack of smokes. And we dip out and leave him behind us. And I remember hitting the blunt one more time before I dropped it onto the sidewalk and stomped it out. And I look up and I just see the Empire State Building. And I'm like, this is so gangster. I live such an awesome life. And at this point, we were just kind of sitting on a big rock that was completely out of place. And a group of dudes walks up to us, right? And there were like 7 or 8 of them. And they were all dressed in dark clothes and kind of approached us aggressively. And the leader of their pack was like, yo, you guys got any weed? And I wasn't about to let these guys know that I had weed in my pocket. They were sketchy as fuck. So I was like, nah, man, we just finished it, and threw my roach over there, and I pointed to it. And he was like, oh, all right, bro, you guys need any coke? As casually as you could be. Like, he was asking me if I wanted a piece of gum or something. And I politely declined, because I don't fuck with anything like that. I'm a weed and booze kind of guy, and he didn't hesitate. He was like, you sure? Because you're fucked up. And he points to Mike. You're fucked up. And he points to Tony, then my brother. And he gets to me, and he's like, you're definitely fucked up. And I was quite fucked up, so I wasn't exactly sure what he meant. So I was like, oh yeah? I thought we were about to get jumped. But he was like, yeah, if you guys need any coke or Molly or dust, and proceeded to list off like 13 different kinds of drugs. He was like, let me know. And then they just kind of walked away and disappeared into the darkness. So I was like, what the fuck was that? And my brother, he's like sheathing a knife, and he's like, oh, I thought some shit was about to go down. I'm like, all right, Rambo, calm the fuck down before someone sees you. And at that point, we had enough of the city. It was like 3:30 in the morning. We were ready to go home, so we started walking in the direction that we thought the train station was. But then Tony just says it. He's like, I have no idea which direction we're supposed to be going in, to be honest. And I'm like, great, this is exactly where we need to be, to get lost in the city with our weed and alcohol strapped to our bags. So Tony's like, fuck it. We'll just walk this way for a little bit, smoke up, and then we'll call a cab. So we roll up, and we start heading off in whatever direction. I truly don't think it mattered, because we had no idea. And as we're walking, there's just this guy sleeping on the sidewalk, minding his business, just typical New York City shit. And Mike walks up to him, being the legend that Mike is. He's like, yo, someone snap a picture of me with this guy. And he hands Tony his phone. So he walks over to this guy, curled up in the fetal position on the sidewalk, and poses up for a picture. Tony snaps it. We dip out. That was the most iconic part of that night, by far. So we keep walking back in the direction of Central Park or something. I'm not even entirely sure. And this is where all the life was. There was the music and the people cooking. And I remember looking over at one point and I saw a Batman with like a set of dumbbells just working out aggressively, watching himself in the mirror or a store window or something. I'm not sure. And as we're walking through, some guy dressed as Spiderman comes up to me with a chair and he just sets it down right in front of me. He didn't talk, but I knew what he wanted. He wanted me to sit down. I can't pass this up. This is a once in a lifetime shot. So, obviously, I sit down. And he goes on to perform a whole dance session with a group and everything that was amazing. And after it all, he was just like, hey bro, do you think I could bum a smoke? I'm like, of course you can. You absolute god. Here's 3. And I gave him a few cigarettes and continued with my jaw on the ground. And I'll never forget that moment in my life. And then we called up our taxi because we figured we had to be getting closer to our destination with all this activity going on. And we got inside the taxi. And this dude has the radio blasting some Indian rap music and skirts off. Then we realized we didn't know where we had to go. None of us knew the name of the train station. So he just brought us to the nearest one, which was luckily the right one. And we had round trip tickets. So we got on the train and we headed home. And the train ride back was pretty normal. We were all pretty tired, so we just kind of sat there and let our high wear down and our drunk come off. And we just enjoyed our ride back home on the train, because I'd never been on a train. I thought they were awesome. So we get back to the car, exhausted and beat and exhausted, excited to tell everybody what the fuck just happened. So we started driving back towards the direction of our hometown or whatever. And we're like an hour and a half in, and we're all shot, mind you, as I mentioned. And Mike's like, oh shit, I gotta go to Walmart. Mind you, it's literally 5 a.m. now, and we're all shot from being drunk and high all night. But regardless, this man pulls into the Walmart parking lot, and me and him go inside. And we actually saw another one of our homies in there who was grocery shopping for some reason. So we said what's up to him, and we told him a little bit about what happened, and we went our separate ways. And do you know what my guy had to go to Walmart for at 5 a.m.? He had to go get paper plates and napkins for his little brother's birthday party. Like, bro, that couldn't have waited until we got, like, at least 4 hours of sleep. But regardless, we got home safe and sound with a lot of lessons learned. Overall, it was a good night. But regardless, we got home safe and sound with a lot of lessons learned. But that's about it for the story, guys. If you like the content, drop a like, subscribe, and share this with your homies. I plan on uploading at least twice a week from now on. Maybe get a webcam to try to make the series more rich. And I apologize for any choppy video. I'm sorry, I'm not the greatest at these commentaries yet, but hopefully I'll get better with them over time. So we'll see what happens. Just, any support is appreciated. I really appreciate you guys. Stay high and stay classy. Peace.